Welcome to the Partyology Experience with your host, Prentice. Hi guys, welcome to the Partyology Experience. You're here, yes, with Prentice, and I'm here today with our guest speaker, 𝚂𝙾𝙲𝙰𝙳, the General Manager of Feel Good Events. Welcome, Emma.
Oh, thanks. Hello. How is everyone?
Excellent. How was your weekend?
Oh, yeah, good. I've had a week off, so I'm feeling great today.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. It's a bit cold, but...
It is a bit cold.
Yes. Anyway, okay, enough of the small talk. In today's episode, we're talking about planning. Now, this is something we've talked about before and is super important. Planning, and we quite often say the more plan, you can't over plan it. Well, I guess you probably could.
You could, yes.
Yeah, but the more planning you do, the more chance that your party's going to be, or event or wedding is going to be a success.
Yes.
Agree?
Be organised.
Yeah. So if you think about planning a party or a wedding, the stats going round, if for planning a wedding, say, it takes about 200 hours to plan a wedding, which is a lot of time.
It does.
Yeah.
Trust me, I'm in the thick of it.
Emma would know. Yes. And you're in the event industry, so you would...
yeah, I got a head start.
Yeah, you already know a lot of stuff.
I know.
But for Joe Blow, who knows nothing or hasn't organised a wedding before, which is most people, 200 hours is a lot of time.
Yeah, minimum, I think.
Yeah.
I think even more. By the time you've done research and everything above, you're looking minimum of 200.
Yeah, and we say for organising a party, you're looking at least 50 hours. Again, by the time you do all your research and venues, thinking about venues, and whether you go and look at stuff or it's just done online, emails back and forwards from suppliers, venue, whatever it might be. Even going out and trying on a new dress or suit or something like that.
It takes time.
It takes time. So
it does.
It can take a lot of time, and so, yeah.
It's like a full-time job. I know some brides that will ring and go, I should have just started working part-time and then done all the extra in the other days, because they just don't have the time to organise their wedding, and they think, I just didn't realise how long this takes.
That's right.
So, yeah, it's a lot of time.
And usually with weddings, most brides and couples think about it at least a year out, because they know you've got to plan an event, so you've got a lot more time, I guess, for a wedding. Yeah. For parties, I don't know if they think that far in advance, and then it can become more stressful because there is a tighter time frame, and they then become stressed because there's
so much to do.
Yeah, they then realise there is as much to do for a party potentially as for a wedding, just slightly different.
Yes.
So I guess in today's podcast, we're going to talk about where do you start. So Emma has a lot of experience in this, especially organising weddings, and we've organised obviously hundreds and thousands of parties.
Lots.
So we speak to people about this sort of stuff all the time. But Emma, when you're recommending what people should do from the beginning or where to go, what do you usually suggest?
So for us, because we're a supplier, we really need more details when people come to us. So making sure that they know exactly what they want. So if you're having a party and you think you're going to have a theme or a style or something like that, you really need to do your research on what type of style you want to do and how you're actually going to execute that. So I love Pinterest. Everything on Pinterest, like fanatical, like Marcus would know this. I have boards upon boards upon boards of themes. Yeah. And I think that's such a really good idea, because you start getting a bit of a pattern of what you like. I find people be like, I like this type of style, but then they start pinning things. They're like, oh, I'm going down a bit of a different path here. Where am I going to end up? So it's really good for us as suppliers and just other event companies to understand where you're going. We have lots of clients that will actually share their Pinterest boards with us.
Yeah, and that really helps, doesn't it?
Oh my God, I love it.
Yeah.
I'm an organised freak, so I love give me more information, overload me, I love it. So those sort of things. Instagram is becoming huge, as everyone knows. Facebook as such, I think it's more for like communication and sort of working out some suppliers, but Instagram these days for events, huge. Yeah. Lots of inspiration. You get to see what clientele the company are doing, what type of functions they're doing, are they sort of on the same path as you. It's a really good idea to start looking at all their socials and all those sort of things to get an idea of what you like. Yeah. Be realistic of what you want and what sort of, we had lots of photos of, fairy light installations. God, they look good, but they're like $100,000 custom made fairy light installations. So be realistic as well, but research is a huge thing. Come to us with all the information No, like of course you don't know everything, but just a starting point would be really great, just to get some ideas of what you sort of think, and then we can then add to that as well and say, oh, what about we could do this, we could do that. It really gets all the ideas flowing, and then we know sort of we're on the same page as well.
Yeah, and I guess that's what the research is all about. It's about creating that vision or the mood board, so that it then helps with the rest of the planning.
Yes.
So when people plan their events and parties, quite often one of the biggest stresses that we've noticed in our business and lots of other businesses is that it's, do you trust those suppliers, or how do I find a supplier that I can trust?
Yes.
Because you're going to deal with, no matter what type of the event, you're going to deal with lots of different suppliers, whether it be the function venue, a florist, or somebody makes you a cake, the DJ, whatever it might be. How do you know you're going to trust them? So
That's a hard one.
Is there something that the clients can do to, I guess, find? How do they know that they can trust that supplier?
Trust is a hard thing to come by when you don't know that person personally. I think if you are a real people person, I would go and see the people in person, or ring them on the phone and have an actual conversation with them. You get a pretty good vibe from someone by either meeting them face to face or over a phone call. If you really sort of feel like they understand you and you kind of feel comfortable talking to them. Everyone's not going to be for everyone. You're not going to, that's what I sort of think, we're not going to suit everyone, and vice versa for other companies. So make sure that you're happy with that person you're dealing with on the phone, or just also, looking at all their socials and just their business as a whole. Are you happy with their culture? Are you happy with who they are? Are you happy with what they do? It's sort of those things, all those things that add up to, do you trust them? I think if you can see that they're working at, decent venues, they're doing decent jobs, all those sort of things, you go, well, they must be doing a good job because they're doing
Google reviews, those sorts of things.
And Google reviews is a hard one sometimes because, we're not all going to have 5-star reviews, and there is going to be like a juggle between good and bad. But, most of the time, if you've got mostly good reviews, there's going to be one off.
That's right.
It always is. How can you get, if you're getting 5 stars all the time, then wow.
Yeah, good on you.
Little things happen, but those things like reviews, testimonials from other clients of how happy they are.
Yeah.
Of course, every company's going to put out what everyone said about them, but if they've got lots of testimonials from people saying they're really happy and wrapped with their service and everything like that, then you kind of know that they're a good business.
Yeah. And I guess suggestions from friends and
recommendations.
Recommendations,
of course, huge.
Function venues. Usually the function venue is the first sort of point of call if you're hiring a function venue and you're not planning to have something at home. Usually a lot of venues, supplier list. A lot of venues are very sort of, I guess some of them are strict on what suppliers they let into their venues, because it does represent their business as well. So if a supplier does a bad job, then it can potentially make the whole function go bad. So a lot of venues will only recommend decent suppliers. So that's a really good start. I know.
Great start.
Yeah, lots of venues will recommend some top quality, whether it be florists or photographers or whatever. And it's a good way to get to to find some to begin with, to make contact with.
And the best thing about that as well is that those suppliers know those venues. Now, there's lots of venues here in Melbourne and around the world that aren't the easiest to actually get into. They know, they might have to pick it up at midnight. Having a supplier that already knows all those ins and outs and all the way that the actual company works and the people that work there, it makes your life a lot less stressful.
That's right.
Because they've already got all that covered. They'll just say, no, I have to get out at midnight that night. I already know that. Then you don't need to do all that running around. And
sometimes, it may cost a little bit more, but it may be worth it just for the stress.
100%. I think that's the way to go. Of course, you can find your own people, and most venues will allow you to bring other people in. But people that know the venue is always a good thing.
Yeah, although that is another good point. Some venues are so fussy about who they let into their function venue that they will actually charge you extra if you don't use their suppliers. So that's something that when you're looking at a venue, and there's not a lot of venues, but you need to look into that and ask those questions. If I bring in my own suppliers, is that okay? And if so, are you going to charge me? Which does seem a little bit strange, but there's certain venues in Melbourne that we work at that we know that the clients have to pay extra if that venue, that supplier is not on their preferred supplier list.
And there's reasons behind that.
Yeah.
That's for them to make sure their reputation stays quite high.
That's right.
That their suppliers are always going to be top notch, doing 100% to
Yeah.
what the client wants. Not saying that all the other companies aren't that are going to come in,
Yes.
but they're just very particular on who they let in. And
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah. So recommendations from venues, I think you can put a lot of value in,
Yeah.
and also to your friends and family if they've used the particular DJ before or photographer or whatever.
Yeah, you trust them.
You're going to have a bit more trust from your friends or family. So
Of course.
that then leads to the key, because it is so stressful in organising
It
a
is.
function or wedding or party. You know, should you hire a function plan or event planner, I should say, or a party planner or a wedding planner? All doing
All of the
very,
above. What are you going to do?
all
What are you gonna hire?
hire one for
Everything.
everything. You know, should you do it? Now there are some benefits, and obviously most of these benefits all comes at a cost. So
Yes,
obviously
which
you're
would be
gonna-
the con of it. Yeah.
Yep, you're going to pay for that service, but in the long run, it can be worth your money. So if you're feeling overwhelmed by organising a party or a wedding, the first thing I would suggest is, if you can't afford a function planner or event planner, keep your function very simple. Don't
Yes.
try and do elaborate things. Just get the basics that you need and keep it as simple as possible. That will make it as stress-free as possible.
Yeah.
And if you are going to do it yourself and you want to keep it as stress-free as possible, plan ahead.
Yeah.
Give yourself as much time as possible. That will help you. If you do have it in your budget to hire a function planner or event planner, then
Yeah.
it's,
That's a good
there's going to
option.
be lots of benefits in that.
Yeah.
They will know again. They're going to know
Suppliers.
decent suppliers. They'll have their own group of suppliers that they work with. They have expert knowledge in how to set up a function space, the dynamics of how the function works, what you should and shouldn't do. You know, they'll help you with colour choices and decor, and you know, when to do things, and all those types of things that you probably wouldn't even think of. All the finer details. They'll help work in with your budgets. They'll save you a lot of time. They'll save you money, probably, because you're going to save time. You're going to save money as well. They'll keep you on the right path, because you might have a mood board that, like Emma does sometimes, and they've got so many different images. It's like, where do I go with this? I'm so excited. I love every theme and style.
Yeah.
You know, so they will then help you keep you on the right track.
Yeah. There's so many pros for this.
Yeah, exactly.
But
So
yeah, it's the money thing as well. And I think sometimes if you can't afford it, which is totally fine, another really good thing is to if you're going to have suppliers, really use them to your advantage. Because suppliers, just because they hire equipment doesn't mean that they don't understand how things work. They can give you so much information.
yeah,
So I think use that as a key. If you're going to, and most suppliers will give you information without having to pay for it. So
Yeah.
they're not going to plan your function for you, but they give you really good key elements to really focus on and make sure that you're sticking with your guns, you're planning properly, and you're actually doing what you want to do for your party. So
That's
use
right.
that to your advantage.
that's right. And every supplier is an expert
course.
in their field, so they will give you good tips.
And that's why we do this as jobs. We have
That's
all that
right.
information in our brains.
Yeah, and I think, again, that comes down to trust. If you do end up hiring a party planner, if you're one of these people that just, I want to do it and want to do it my way, you're probably better not
Yeah.
hiring a party planner or a wedding
Yeah.
planner, because it's just you're gonna be
Yeah.
frustrated because they may not agree with everything you say.
Yeah.
So the party planner is there to help, you know, create your vision or your wedding.
Yeah.
So
You should trust them.
Have
Trust
some
them
trust in
100%.
them. But that's easier said than done. But something that's super important.
You need trust. If you don't trust them, because they're going to do things that you might go, well, I don't know about that. But on the day, you'll get there and go, I'm so happy we did that. And that's where you need to have some trust, because we do know what we're talking about. And, you know, it's important to listen, and we can do some things that you didn't even
Yeah.
think were possible.
Yeah. And one of the other key things, and this is something that most people think sort of forget about, is on the night of your event. Now, whether it be
yes.
a party or a wedding, having somebody there to help run the night. Now,
Yep.
especially for weddings, but even so for
Even
parties.
parties now.
There's lots of things that happen on a night of a function that if you're the host and maybe having it at your house or even at a function venue, having somebody there to keep the night flowing and ticking over and sort of, I guess, be the function manager for that particular type of event can help with a lot of stress.
Oh, 100%.
So there'll be things like, you might have some entertainment showing up through the night that needs to have direction. The bar, if you're having it at home and you've organised bar stuff and they need some extra ice, or
they'll be asking you.
Yeah, where do the caterers go? I've run out of food, or all these things. If you don't have somebody to manage those sorts of things on the night, you could end up working at your function and not enjoying your function.
And most of them end up doing that, and I've seen it happen so many times. We've had lots of clients where I've gone to their houses and they want to throw these amazing parties. And I'm like, so who's doing all the organisation on the day and on the night? Because you've got to remember all your suppliers are coming to do the setup on that day as well.
Yeah.
Are you going to be there? Because if you're doing hair and makeup, you're not there for half the day. Who's organising to make sure that they do what you've actually wanted them to do? And on the night, when everyone actually arrives, like supplier-wise and all that sort of thing, are you going to be, because you're going to be there with all your guests, you're not going to be wanting to be like, oh, do I need to put this here or there?
Yeah.
It is a lot to take on, and I think if you're wanting to have a good night and just relax, please organise help.
Yeah, and it might even be that you've just hired a friend.
Or
a friend of a friend.
Or someone you work with that's not really a friend coming to the party, but is happy to take on the job of just, you know.
And you pay them a couple $100 for the night, and they're the go-to person. It could be something as simple as the neighbours are complaining about noise and they've come to knocked on the door, or the police have showed up because it's too noisy.
Yeah.
Who's going to deal with that? And you need somebody to manage all these things. The amount of times at functions where people have, as we say, they've run out of ice at the bar or they've run out of clean glasses, and they're going to go looking for the person who's having the function.
Because that's all they know and that's where they live, because it's like they're going to know more than anyone else. Even just food, like, if you haven't got a caterer there looking after the food, you've got a grazing table, for example, it's very popular at the moment. Who's going to look after that? Because that can get real messy really quickly.
Yeah, it can.
And then
or you've run out of plates or serviettes.
Yeah, something like that. Something so simple that you should not be worrying. If you spend all this money to have a party and it's your 40th, and you're having to do that all night, you're not going to have a good time. And then most people are going to be looking for you to want to talk to you and stuff like that as well. Right. It's just not a nice environment, especially when you're spending that much money.
And so that's what we say. Do you want to work at your function or do you want to enjoy it? And a lot of people end up working at them.
And most of them want to enjoy it. That's what they want. And then they have the night and they're like, I should have just hired someone.
But it's just an oversight. They just don't
100%.
realise that all these things are going to be done. Now, obviously, if you hire a function venue, then a lot of this stuff can be taken care of by the venue, which is great. But even then, sometimes there's still things
that they can't look after as well.
That come up that aren't fitting in with what they normally do. And it might be, something to do with the entertainment, or you've got showgirls coming in and where do they go to get changed and stuff like that. So having somebody there to manage those sorts of things is really important on the day.
Extremely important.
Again, lots to think about there when it comes to planning. It can be quite stressful. There is good and bad things about hiring a party planner or event planner. We strongly suggest that these days for weddings, more and more people are time poor, and weddings being even more involved and
more stressful.
A lot more cost involved. Sometimes hiring a wedding planner, somebody to think of all these small things and help create your vision, is super important. So hopefully we've touched on some good ideas today and given you some good tips on what to think about when starting your planning. But thanks for listening, and we hope you tune in again soon. Thanks for listening to the Partyology Experience with your host, Marcus Prentice. Don't forget to subscribe or check out our website for more party tips and expert advice at feelgoodevents.com.au.